All right. Welcome everybody to Psi Chi's How to Get into Graduate School.
Hello, everybody. My name is Roberta Miranda, and I'm a co-advisor at Nevada State College located in Henderson, Nevada.
Hi, I am Melissa Wilson or Missy. I am at UCR. I'm a graduate student in my third year in the social personality psychology area.
And I'm Jill Yamashita. I work at Cal State Monterey Bay as a cognitive psychologist. And again, welcome. So today we're going to go over 4 different things. First, choosing a program. Second, best practices and applications. Third, succeeding in graduate school. And fourth, life as a graduate student. So I'm going to go ahead and start with choosing a program. So choosing a program, well, there are a lot of different types of psychological programs out there. And the question is, which one is best for you? And I think that's one of the hardest decisions a person makes. I know for me, it was one of the most difficult decisions of what did I really want to do? So I had to do, yes, a lot of research to choose a program that was a good fit for what I wanted to do. There are, of course, different types of programs out there. First of all, what area of psychology do you want to study? Do you want to study clinical? Do you want to study social, experimental, industrial, organizational, developmental, counseling? And those are just some of them. They're not all of the different choices that you can choose from, of course. And then, of course, what degree do you want to do? What do you want to do with your degree? And that also determines what type of program that you're going to want to choose. So if you weren't sure about what I just said, clinical, counseling, industrial organizational, experimental, developmental, social, right? There's lots of different options. So I'm going to go over 4 main ones. The clinical or clinical psychology areas focuses on severe mental and behavioral health care. And it helps people to be trained in therapeutic techniques. So clinical psychologists oftentimes have their own practices, for example. Then there's counseling. There's marriage and family therapy. There's social work. Uh, Counselors tend to help people with physical, emotional, social issues and tend to focus on one's well-being. Then there's my area, the experimental research area, the scientific investigation of psychological processes, like for example, cognitive, developmental, social psychology. And then there's industrial organizational. This is applied psychological theories to the workplace. So now you know an idea of the different areas within psychology. Now it's a matter of choosing what type of degree to go with that. A master's, a PhD, PsyD. Well, it all depends on what you plan to do. If you want to go into experimental or industrial organizational psychology, then believe it or not, a PhD is the best route to take. Clinical psychologist, a PhD or PsyD, again, it depends on if you want a program that is more research based, then you want then you want a PhD clinical psychology program. If you want something that is more applied and less research based, then you want a PsyD program. But you want to make sure that all the programs that are clinical psychology have APA accreditation. And then there's, of course, counseling. Counseling, you can have a master's or a PhD. And again, it depends on what type of counseling you want to do. If you want to just do marriage and family, I shouldn't say just, if you want to do marriage and family therapy, for example, a master's degree is sufficient to have your own practice. Okay, so doing research, I know this is not people's favorite thing, but once you have an idea of what area you want to go to, and you have an idea about what level, master's, PhD, or PsyD, you need to now look at the different university programs to see what's out there. Give yourself a lot of time to do this type of research because there are a lot of different programs out there. A great resource for information is the APA book called The Graduate Study in Psychology. I know I use that book and it lists all the different programs, PhD, PsyD, and Masters. And it gives you an idea about how many people they take per year. They tell you about the rate of completion, so graduation rates, all that good stuff is included. And I know you're going, I'm going to do most of my research online. That's okay. It's just this is a great resource if you aren't sure about what schools that you want to examine. There are things to consider when you're doing your research. You definitely want to make sure that universities are accredited by APA for the clinical psychology programs. It is a necessity. If you want to get a job as a clinical psychologist and you have your PhD, but it was not by an accredited APA program, the chances of you getting a job actually go way, way down. So you definitely want to make sure that you have a reputable accredited program for a clinical psychology PhD. Look for programs that have what you're interested in. Don't go just by the name of the university. I know that's the problem that a lot of people will do. They go, oh, this is a good school. But does that school have the program that you're interested in? I know people who said, oh, yeah, I'm going to apply to Stanford and they want to do clinical psychology. Well, if you look at Stanford's program, do they have a clinical psychology program? Hmm. So it's just something to be aware of. It's just don't go by the name, go by how well of a fit that program is for you. Also, when you look at universities, look at the faculty within the department and see what those faculty are doing for research or what those faculty's expertise areas are. And that's another good way to see if there's a good match for you. Because oftentimes in graduate school, you're going to be working with one mentor or advisor in particular, and you want to make sure that it's a really good match for what you want to do. And now, Roberta.
Yes, thank you so much. Some wonderful tips there. And so I'm going to talk about applying to graduate school and some tips on beginning that process. I'm actually going to be focusing on 5 main factors that many institutes look for when selecting graduate students and what might help you get started if you're thinking about grad school. The first would be academic records, so your academic performance, your personal statement, letters of recommendation, research or clinical experience, depending on your preferred program, and thinking about a match to the program like we were just talking about, and perhaps even a match to a certain professor or mentor. Okay. Go to the next slide. There we go. So we're going to talk first about academic records. Okay. So this is probably one area that I know many students get concerned about, or grades, GPA. And especially when you're in your undergraduate program, there's a strive, of course, to have a higher GPA. And the thing is that many students might feel discouraged if they don't have straight A's, or if they do take their GRE that they don't score, like say something higher than a 1300. And although these are great guidelines, there's some research there you can see that says that indicates that it could be a good predictor as far as academic performance, as far as GPA and GRE scores. However, something to consider is that it doesn't necessarily coincide with postgraduate success and number of published papers, school completion, etc. And a lot of committee members who are looking at your applications may take this into consideration. So of course, ideally, it's wonderful to try to get the highest GPA in your undergraduate program. And if you do take your GRE to score relatively high, and of course, there's some support to help get you there with workshops and all that. But just something to think about, that it's not the only determinant when it comes to the committee members choosing your application. Of course, there will be situations, if it is a highly competitive program, where committee members do use these areas to kind of weed out applicants, especially if they're getting many who may have low GPA scores or GRE scores. So of course there is hopefully a goal to get there. But again, if you get a solid B in something, I may not be recommended to wait a whole other year to apply, especially when we cover the other areas that may help strengthen this opportunity. Okay. So let's talk about your personal statement. Excuse me. Okay, so what does your personal statement entail? And so you'll notice here that there's some sparkles, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why that might be. Okay, next. Okay, so your personal statement is really intended to serve two goals. So the first goal is to provide a sample of your communication skills. The second is for the committee members to get to know you as a person. Okay. We'll talk more about that. So when we're thinking about communication skills, you're writing your letter. Many graduate schools obviously when you're in graduate school, you'll be using communication skills in your papers, your presentations, your teaching, because in some programs you may be asked to teach, providing clinical evaluations if you're in a clinical program. And so the personal statement is going to clue the committee members as to how well you are able to use written communication to convey information. Even a cohesive argument, because in a sense, your personal statement is an opportunity to argue for yourself as a good candidate for the program. So that's why it's really important to not stay vague, not stay very generic, but to really put a little oomph into this. So then it really illustrates some of your capabilities and abilities to express yourself. Okay. The second goal is the committee members will get to know who you are as a person. So this is where you, in your personal statement, get to describe the kind of past experiences you've had, to talk about your excitement for the program, identify faculty members or their research that really interest you, taking the time to learn who the faculty are, to personalize it as much as possible. Because again, committee members are, when they see certain names and familiar names from their department, they're going to recognize that you've done a little research about the program and shows that you really are excited to be part of that department, part of that team. Other things to think about is just if, for example, going back to the GPA or your GRE score, the personal statement is also an avenue to explain why your scores may not be as high as maybe they could. Perhaps there was a personal experience that you'd like to mention, that really describes perhaps some setbacks or challenges in your undergraduate program. This is also an opportunity to talk about resiliency, uncommon routes to get where you are today. If maybe you have a little less academic experience, but you have more life experience or more employment experience, this is a chance to really let yourself shine. And that's why I use the sparkle analogy in the picture, because the goal is to really not be shy in these areas, but to let your strengths and abilities shine through this personal statement. Okay. Okay, So again, thinking resiliency. So if for example there was maybe your transcripts reflect maybe a mix of classes. Maybe you started off as a criminal justice major in your undergraduate program and then switched to psychology. That might really be an interesting story for the committee members, because they are interested in hearing about who you are and your road to where you're going. And so by maybe sharing a brief experience about your spurred interest in psychology, it may just also give them an opportunity to recognize that maybe you didn't have all that lab or research, just those opportunities from your freshman year, because you had a change of heart because of something maybe that happened. So there's just an opportunity to fill in the gaps when it comes to your personal statement. So again, when you're talking to your classmates and maybe you feel discouraged because they have 4 years of research under their belt and maybe you have 2, just to be able to still use this and to not feel discouraged and to share with your potential college or university, who you are and why you would be a strength, and getting them to know who the unique person are that you are. And this is an opportunity to think resilient. So we also don't want to use the personal statement to talk about all the things that we're not, or the excuses as to why we're not where we should be, but to really reframe it and just exhibit resiliency through all this. Because in the long run, it's the selection committee who wants to see you as a worthwhile investment. Okay. All right, now the letters of recommendation. So this is the opportunity for an outside perspective as to your potential value. So thinking about, do I want these letters? And oftentimes there are 3 letters. But again, it's very important to look at the requirements of the university to see what they're looking for specifically. Some letters might ask for a professor or faculty member, maybe from a graduate student. Typically somebody within the college who can speak to your academic performance and to some of your strengths. A letter specifically from a faculty member or professor oftentimes really is highly appreciated by the committee members, because it often demonstrates the most authority and most trusted source, because they've seen you as a student. They've seen you as a budding professional. So their contributions, basically, you really want to get a letter from somebody who knows you, and not just pops into their class every once in a while, but can really speak to you on a more personal basis. Okay. Because the bottom line is we really want to refrain from superficial letters. If it's just, gosh, I highly recommend so-and-so for this college. I think he is a good student. And it just sounds very generic. Oftentimes committee members can see that. And it's oftentimes perceived as, gosh, I can kind of get a sense that this letter doesn't come from a professor or faculty member who knows the student very well. So if you're still fostering those relationships, it's not a bad idea to offer to co-author a letter of recommendation, to really share that responsibility and put a combined effort into it, versus just a generic letter from the department. Because ideally, if possible, you really want a letter that can detail what that good investment is going to look like for the graduate program. So in addition to your academic work, you really want the recommender to speak well of your research or clinical skills, the way you communicate, analytic skills. Do they know about your motivation level? And honestly, to really convey why you are unique, why you're special and important. And so that's quite a bit, right? It can be a little overwhelming to know that there's so much put into this letter of recommendation. But oftentimes, professors will be happy to see you succeed. Uh, However, that comes though with a little bit of a respect and an investment in that relationship with the professor. So how can you ask for it? Because I know that sometimes students can be a little nervous about approaching something like this. However, if there's already a cultivated relationship with your professors, that question really is not going to be too surprising to the professor. I'm very grateful when students make that effort with me to speak to me after class, set up office hours, share with me what they want to do with their lives, because then I'm excited for them. I want to see them succeed. And then I can really speak to who they are as a person versus trying to remember, how maybe they did on an assignment. So taking that time to reach out to your professors is really important. Sometimes you might worry that you're burdening or bothering your instructors, and I will tell you that is not the case. That the majority of professors will take time to listen to you and get to know you. When you are asking for a letter of recommendation, please give plenty of time to your professor because they are quite busy. So giving them a week's notice oftentimes is going to yield a little bit more anxiety or even a little pushback from the professor. So knowing what your application deadlines are ahead of time and letting the professor know, like, gosh, in 2 months, I'm going to be applying to this school. Would you consider writing this letter for me? And I know for me, I totally appreciate when I get student prompts to say, hello, Professor Miranda, my due date is in 2 weeks, because that alerts me as to making sure that I get it done. Because it's not that I don't want to, sometimes it's just time gets away from us. What's really nice, though, is to provide as much detailed information to the professor. So I actually, I have a little form that I encourage students to fill out, because then that helps me really recognize like what their school of choice is, their reasons for ongoing education or that particular program, what their professional plans and passions are, previous related experiences, personal experiences, because I throw that in there too, and challenges that you've tackled, uh, especially when it comes to multicultural and advocacy efforts. I like to throw just some of those efforts in there to really make your letter shine, your strengths, and other reasons why the program should choose you. And I can't emphasize this enough. This is where you just do not want to be shy. It is not being egotistical. You really just want to just let yourself shine through that letter. And the more that you can offer that to your writers of the letters of recommendation, the more inclined they will be to include it. Okay. All right. Research. So let's talk a little bit about research and clinical experience. So oftentimes in the PhD program, and even in many master's programs, the training programs will require some type of research to be conducted. So that's why trying to at least get some basic skills under your belt is really going to help you in the long run. So whether that might be taking extra courses in your undergraduate program, maybe asking your professors to get involved in research, is going to help provide you with a beautiful foundation of the skills necessary to exceed in grad school. Even in applied training programs, even if you're thinking more clinical, you're still going to be required to read literature. You're going to lots of literature, write big papers, conduct research, maybe archival data or creating new experiences. So no matter what program, this is going to be part of your experience in grad school. So whatever you can do to prepare yourselves for that, it certainly would be beneficial. Okay. Uh, when it comes to clinical experience, so if you're leaning towards a clinical program, it is recommended to try to get also some clinical experience under your belt. I know you already have so much going on with your classes and extracurricular activities and work and families. But if you can get some research experience, and if you're thinking clinical, some clinical experience under your belt, then that's also going to make your application really shine. And so students often approach me to say, well, how the heck am I going to get clinical experience? I'm not a licensed therapist yet. Well, there's opportunities to volunteer at many different behavioral health facilities. Some undergraduate programs, like we have here at Nevada State, do offer field experience or internship opportunities in our undergraduate program. So maybe taking that class, and whatever you do in that internship to really emphasize when you are putting together your application. There are many bachelor's level behavioral health bachelor's level positions if you do want part-time or full-time employment that you can add on. And also too, maybe even emphasizing experience from your counseling content courses. So if you did take a diagnosis and assessment class and you just excelled at it, this is using that language and really talking about maybe a project that you did in that particular course could really help make that stand out. And of course, tying this into your future clinical goals. Okay. So just again, our research, the selection committees really will be looking at the diversity of your research experience. So looking at your labs, your projects, the strength of your commitment to research. So for example, how long did you work in each lab? Maybe skills that you brought onto the program. So these are things that maybe you can include in your letter. So in other words, were you just maybe entering data, or were you doing more of the designing or writing about the study? So emphasize these different roles that you engaged in during your research or clinical experience. And then if you happen to do different projects or different labs, it doesn't hurt to write a common thread that complements your research interests and maybe even ties into what you want to continue to do. Okay. Uh, so just to tie this up, really the important thing is that this is not only important to include in your letter, your personal statement, and maybe even have your letters of recommendation reflect some of your research or clinical experience, but it's also very important to put together a CV or like a resume of just all the like in a beautiful format of just your different involvement with research, giving some bullet points or clinical experience and some bullet points. This will just really help you look very professional. It'll help the committee members to really see just all of your experience in a glance. And it's just it will be something that you can carry to your future positions. So starting your it's never too early to start your CV process. And there are many writing programs and assistants out there to help you get started with this. Okay, so last but not least, the match to the program or advisor. So how do you know if you're a good match? Well, we talked about this a little bit earlier. It will take some research on the school's website through that wonderful book that was recommended by Dr. Yamashita. Uh, Certainly, there's just so many things that you can do to make sure it's a good fit and not, like we said, just go by the name of a school, but to actually get the essence, the culture of the school, the size, the type, the different faculty members' websites to get an idea of topics that they research. Uh, if possible, getting to meet the faculty members and graduate students, getting to hear what life is as a student or faculty member in that department, because this is quite an investment of money, of time, and it's going to be something that you're going to be part of for quite a period. So you really want to make sure that you're going to find a program that just really fits you. So, and again, bottom line is that how do you know if it's a good match? Just to try. I know it's hard right now with the pandemic, but if you get faculty member to know who you are, and maybe you learn, like if there are a couple of different faculty members you'd like to that interest you, is reach out to both of them. You know, it's not to say like, okay, I'm just going to reach out to one person and then just and that's it because I don't want to offend another faculty member. It's like, no, just be friendly, be approachable, try to connect, try to set up online meetings, try to check out the campus, and because all of those, it'll serve both of you. It'll give you that chance to that confidence that you know it's going to be a wonderful fit, and it's going to let the faculty, the professors, graduate students just know that you would be a wonderful fit for them. So getting to know each other is always helpful. And I think this is about kind of wrapping up here. Let's see, and then just to see if how your research experience overlaps with a faculty member. So you want to advertise yourself to perhaps more than one faculty member. You maybe just want you. The bottom line is that you'd like to be on their short list, if possible. So whatever that might take to say, gosh, yeah, like I've reached out, I've connected, and it doesn't hurt to let yourself be known, to again not be shy and let yourself shine. And, oh, I guess I had one more slide. Let's see, and I'm just trying to see if I think I pretty much covered all of this. And just to just wrap up, hopefully these are some wonderful ideas for you to think about. It's not too late, even if you're just in your sophomore, junior year in your undergraduate program. It's not too early to start thinking about these different areas. Your GPA, your GRE scores, your personal statements, your letters of recommendation, getting that research or clinical experience, and doing some research on potential graduate programs. And that's it. So I'm going to pass this on to Missy.
Hello, hi everyone. I am going to be talking a little bit about how to be successful as a graduate student, and then I'm going to describe what a typical day in the life of a grad student looks like. So it's such an amazing feeling to be accepted into a graduate program after you put so much work into your applications. You've just heard some tips for how to have a successful application, but what can you do to be successful once you've started your program? Well, depends on how we want to define success in grad school. There are a lot of different ways to be successful in grad school, and so there are many different definitions of success. I've listed 5 different ways to be successful in grad school here. So the first obviously would be to be successful in your program. You will need to meet the expectations and requirements of that program. So this is what you might think of first when you hear of a successful graduate student, but there is more to it. You'll also want to be productive and proactive as a grad student. You'll want to build strong, positive relationships and connections throughout your time in the program. And you'll want to make sure that you've set yourself up to confront the job market once you've completed your degree. Lastly, there's an argument to be made that a happy graduate student is a successful graduate student. Grad school can be extremely stressful and a really challenging time, so maintaining your well-being with a healthy work-life balance is really important. So I've just provided 5 different ways to be a successful grad student. Let's look at each in more depth, starting with meeting your program expectations. So once you're in grad school, you will be responsible for knowing what you need to have done and by when. So this might look a bit different depending on your future program or school. If you're in a master's program, you'll likely have certain courses that you'll need to complete by a specific year in the program. You'll have a research thesis or a major project of some sort, and you'll have to present and defend that project. Also, depending on what type of program you're in, you may have a fieldwork or internship requirement and comprehensive exams as well. Can you hit next? For me, I'm in a research psychology doctoral program, And when I was a first year, I had certain intro courses that were mapped out for me. Then I had a specific number of seminars that needed completion prior to the end of my second year. I also had a research thesis, or they call it in my program the second year project. That was akin to the master's thesis project that I completed in the spring quarter of my second year. And then as a new third year, I actually just wrapped up my comprehensive or qualifying exams. In my fourth year, I'll be expected to propose my dissertation. And then in the fifth year, I'll be working on that dissertation and defending it. So those are some program requirements that could relate to what your future program looks like. It's just a very broad overview, but it's really important to just be aware of these timelines and deadlines for your specific program to make sure that you're reaching the appropriate milestones at the appropriate times and that you're prepared for them, most importantly. Okay. So it's also important that you talk with your primary advisor or mentor to ensure that you understand their expectations for your time in the program. This might look a bit different in master's programs without a strict mentorship model in grad school, but in many programs, especially in doctoral programs, you will be expected to conduct research in a lab under the direction of a PI or a principal investigator. And you'll want to make sure that you're meeting your advisor's expectations for your time in the program in that regard as well. So that's quite a lot to take stock of. So to be successful in meeting your program expectations, make sure you're always thinking ahead and planning for the next step. At each campus, there will be resources to help guide you in creating your grad school plan. So take advantage of the academic coordinators and even more advanced grad students in your program when you're planning out these requirements. They'll be useful to you as well. They'll have great advice, and they'll also make the requirements seem a little bit less daunting. Okay, so moving on to our next definition of success, being proactive and productive. So this is really all about taking responsibility for your own grad school experience. So think about what you really want from grad school and identify opportunities to attain those goals. So do you want to build connections? Then don't wait for faculty to come to you. You can go to them and request a meeting or introduce yourself. If you want to learn a specific programming language, then maybe take a look at related workshops that are offered on campus. It's just important to take stock of the opportunities available to you and use them to build your skill set. These things won't necessarily be required. It'll be up to you to take that initiative. On the last slide, I listed some requirements that you'll have to meet, and now I'm telling you to take more on your plate. I know it can feel overwhelming, but being organized and developing good project management skills will help you get through. So they'll help you get through not only grad school, but also your future career that you get post-graduation. Grad school will definitely feel more unstructured than your undergraduate, so it's important to try to create some sort of structure in the projects that you're working on. It might look like setting deadlines for yourself and developing a regular work schedule that grad student life does not come with naturally. It might also help to schedule a regular meeting with your supervisor or mentor in order to have a check to your progress and to motivate you to be productive. And third, you don't have to do this all alone. When you're struggling, don't be afraid to ask for help. On any campus, there will be resources that are designed to promote your success, and I highly recommend that you take advantage of those. At UCR, we have a problem called Fittingly Grad Success. They coordinate various resources on campus like the writing and quantitative help centers, including workshops. They also have resources for teaching and career guidance as well as opportunities for funding, among other things. So look for your grad success equivalent resources on your campus. And I would recommend that you look for them early and get used to going to them for help. It will definitely make your life a lot easier. Okay, so in order to be a successful grad student, it's important to build strong, positive relationships and get involved within and outside of your department. So first off, you'll want to make sure that you have a good working relationship with your supervisor or mentor. Set regular meetings with your primary mentor and have a clear purpose for each meeting. So then you'll want to follow up on the items that you discussed and keep your supervisor informed of your progress and challenges. Be sure to ask questions, advance ideas, and show interest and support for your shared goals and projects. Now, this advisor model may not apply to some programs, especially in master's programs, but that doesn't mean you can't seek out mentors in your program. In fact, even if you are in a program with an advisor model, it would benefit you to cast a wide mentorship net. Maybe you'll have one faculty member that you feel comfortable asking quantitative or methodological questions to, maybe one that shares your research interests more specifically, and another that is particularly effective in the classroom and shares teaching tips with you if you're being asked to teach. Learning from a diverse set of faculty with a diverse set of skills is an invaluable opportunity that you have in grad school. Another great way to build connections in grad school is by seeking input and collaboration on your projects and by attending optional seminars or departmental gatherings. This is a great way to participate in the intellectual community in your department and to make your face a familiar one. And then third, you'll also want to seek collaboration and relationships outside of your department. So networking at conferences is a great way to get the ball rolling. Attending and presenting your research at conferences not only looks great on your CV, but it could foster a collaborative relationship that's fruitful once you hit the job market. Okay, so ultimately, it's likely that you're interested in going to grad school to set yourself up for a good and fulfilling career that you enjoy. So as a new or incoming grad student, you'll want to explore different career possibilities that interest you, and make sure that you have a few different paths in mind from the start. It'll take you a bit of time to develop your career goals, and you'll want to make sure that when you are developing those, that you can, you've done your research and you know exactly which paths you could possibly take. And once you've decided that, you'll know which opportunities are useful to you and which opportunities in grad school that come along are worth your time. Once you have your career goals in mind, think about what you'd like your CV or resume to look like at the end of grad school. What can you do now to get there? Some commonly desired skills or experiences might include quantitative and programming skills, maybe involvement in and service to the academic community, whether it be through mentoring undergraduate students or presenting at conferences. If you're looking to have a career in research, publishing academic papers may be an important way forward for you. And it might be a given in your program that you'll have some sort of teaching experience through being a TA or a teacher's assistant. But you might also want to seek out opportunities to be the instructor of record or the primary instructor of a course. And that's particularly useful if you want a career in teaching. So these are just some of the ways that you can use your time in grad school to prepare yourself for the job market. But lastly, you'll want to keep your options open, particularly if you're unsure or not fully committed to your career goals. But even if you are sure, you might change your mind, you might change your goals as you progress through your program and you gain new experiences. And beyond that, the job market can be difficult and unpredictable. So it's a good idea to set yourself up for a few different career opportunities that you'd welcome and enjoy. But with that said, having just a few of these paths in mind will help you to sort out the best opportunities for you from those that may not be worth your time. But in the end, you just can't do it all, and it's more important that you prioritize your time. Okay, my last tip for being a successful graduate student is to make it through while maintaining a well-balanced and healthy life. It's super important to take care of yourself, and I realize that the strategies for success that I just outlined lend themselves to a completely packed schedule. Burnout is super real and can affect your desire to even stay in grad school or leave you feeling overwhelmed and stressed. You can mitigate burnout by making sure to take time for yourself and do non-school activities that you enjoy whenever possible. and also by getting sleep. Prioritize your sleep. The reality is that you just can't do everything. And as a grad student, you'll have to make it a point to prioritize your mental and physical well-being so that you can bring your A game during your work hours. One thing that's helped me through grad school is the support of my grad school friends and cohort mates. Their support is especially helpful when feelings of imposter syndrome start to arise. So imposter syndrome is this feeling of self-doubt, like maybe you're not good enough to be in grad school, or you somehow tricked the program into thinking you're a worthy applicant, but in reality, you're an imposter or a fraud. This is such a common feeling in grad students, but when we don't talk about it, it seems as if you're the only person who feels this way. But having a group of people who really understand what you're dealing with and are willing to share their own experiences in grad school is crucial. So take time to develop relationships with other grad students and maybe even join a graduate student organization and see your academic friends outside of the academic environment and offer each other support as you go through these milestones together. Finally, you'll want to remember that there is a world outside of academia and that you have friends and family outside of grad school. So grad school has a way of taking over your life. One key to success in grad school is to leave that realm now and then in order to get some perspective and have some fun with friends and family. Ultimately, success in grad school is making it through, and having a good social support system goes a long way for that. Okay, so now that I've outlined various paths to success in grad school, I'd like to expand on what this actually looks like in practice. So, what does the life of a grad student actually look like? Um, First, I will describe a typical day in the life of a grad student. I'll highlight some harsh realities and some silver linings, and then I'll end with some things to keep in mind as you work through your graduate program in psychology. But do keep in mind that I'm in a psych research doctoral program, so what follows will definitely be colored by my own experience, but I hope that it's useful to you nonetheless. Okay, so a typical week in the life of a grad student consists of a lot of multitasking and making progress in many different domains. The following is a list of things that my days typically feature. So because I'm in a research program, I spend a good chunk of time conducting research. This might look like preparing for data collection, coordinating data collection, and running analyses. Studies are often ongoing and they require a lot of management and problem solving skills. So that's a big portion of my time as a grad student. Writing is another big component of grad school. It's important to set aside some writing time so that you can make progress towards completing manuscripts for publication and working on your research thesis or dissertation. Personally, I found that writing always takes longer than I think it will. And so budgeting time to make sure you're producing good quality work is crucial. I try to create my quarterly schedule in such a way that I have a full day open somewhere in the week, or at least a full afternoon or morning that can be used as writing time, and I just block it off for that. I also spend a lot of time conferencing or presenting as I'm doing now. In addition to this grad school presentation, I also have a research talk on the WPA conference website, if you want to check that out. Getting involved with conferences usually means being aware of abstract submission deadlines, preparing a poster or presentation, and then the fun part usually is traveling and meeting new people. And I do hope that we're able to get back to that sometime very soon, and hopefully in your time in grad school. So as a grad student at UCR, I'm able to make money by being a teaching assistant. So this is like a part-time job. It takes about 20 hours a week, and I spend about 3 hours actually teaching per week. And then the rest of that time goes to planning, office hours, grading, and answering student emails, which does take a long time. I also have coursework and seminars that I attend as well. So as I previously mentioned, as a first year, I did have core classes that I needed to complete. But now as a third year, I have optional seminars that I take. So right now I'm taking a special topic in personality, psychology, I'm taking a quantitative programming seminar. Basically, I just sign up for courses that seem relevant or interesting to me. I also have a departmental seminar in which people discuss and present their current research. So that's a great way to stay involved in what everyone in your department is doing. Okay, and then service. One way that I engage in service to the department is through mentorship. So I'm actually a graduate student mentor through the Women's Resource Center at UCR, and I mentor undergraduate RAs in my lab, and I'm a campus rep for the Society for Health Psychology. These are just some of the ways that I've gotten involved, and these opportunities kind of came to me, and I just accepted them really because they seem to be useful to where I want to go for my career goals and useful for developing skills. So those are just some of the ways that I've gotten involved, and I usually will meet with my mentees weekly or even bi-weekly, so the time commitment there is super doable. In my unscheduled time, I answer emails and I create a lot of lists. I fill out a planner, a desk calendar, and so many to-do lists, so many post-it notes that are just constantly being updated. So this system works for me. I make sure I stay on top of things and stay organized. And then I also occasionally eat, drink, and sleep in addition to that. And then the rest is just personal time to see my friends and family, watch some TV, just unwind generally. And in all honesty, there's just no one typical day to grad school. Some days I may have more classes than others. Some days may be filled with lab meetings, RA meetings, advisor meetings. Other days may be consumed with TAing and grading or coursework. It just really depends. Grad school definitely lacks a specific structure as compared to a typical 9-to-5 job, but because of that, it also provides some freedom to work on what you want to work on and when you want to work on it. Okay, so next we'll talk about some harsh realities of the day-to-day life as a grad student. I mentioned that I'm able to make money as a teaching assistant in my program, but the reality is that you're going to be making very little money doing that. The average grad student in a funded PhD program makes $30,000 a year. It also might be the case that you don't get paid during summer months at all, which is a financial burden that you'll have to plan for in advance. So while this might seem like an upgrade in pay from jobs you held in college, your salary might feel particularly low compared to how much you're working and at this higher level. So it also might be the case that your program isn't funded at all. You're also going to be working a lot. The average grad student puts in about 60 hours of work per week. I'm sure it's no mystery as to why, after I just described how many different tasks and projects you may be involved with. So you'll have to develop your multitasking skills and learn how to budget and prioritize your time. Finally, grad school can be incredibly stressful. And as I mentioned before, you might develop imposter syndrome or burnout. You may feel overworked, underappreciated, sleep deprived. These are all very harsh realities of how many grad students feel while they're in their programs. But for every harsh reality, there's a silver lining. So are you going to be making very little money? Yes, but you can always get loans and payments that will be deferred until after you graduate. Sometimes there are options for loan forgiveness as well. And at the end of the day, whether or not your program is funded, you'll come out of it with a degree, connections, a set of skills that are going to serve you well in the job market, and you'll be put on a path to a career that will hopefully pay you well and will be something that you enjoy and find fulfilling. So are you going to be working all the time? Yeah, yes, you are. But hopefully you'll be working on things that you want to be working on. So for example, I love teaching, I love mentoring others. So although it keeps me really busy, I find it enjoyable. I'm currently collecting data regarding expectations for the outcome of the presidential election. That requires a lot of management, but I'm really excited to see that data. So even though I'm busy, I'm working on things that I care about and I get to feel accomplished along the way. And is grad school very stressful? Yes, yes it is. But honestly, jobs are stressful in general, especially when you're first starting. But through these stressful experiences, you'll be surprised at how quickly and how much you grow and learn new things, even just within 1 year. And although it's stressful, there's a huge payoff. You'll get a degree at the end, and you'll be that much closer to achieving your career dreams. So I want to conclude with some words of wisdom and things that I've learned in my time, my 3 years in grad school. So first of all, find your non-grad school thing. It's important to step outside of the academic realm and find things that bring you happiness and reduce your stress. It might be practicing yoga, going for hikes, baking. For me, it's spending time with my new puppy Otis. And if you click next, you'll see a picture. Uh, oh, maybe not. It's coming. That's my puppy Otis. Uh, so when I'm feeling bogged down by work, I go for a walk with my dog, or even just sitting with him and petting him can ease my mind. So finding that thing that helps you to unwind will really help with grad school stress. Next, you'll want to keep in mind that grad school isn't college. The courses or seminars require much more engagement and participation than you might be used to, especially because class sizes will be much, much smaller. You'll need to take a much more active role in your education in grad school, and it really is more like a job than attending school. Also, allow yourself to become a part of the academic community in your program. So I think if you click next, there may be a picture there of me with my lab mates. Try not to isolate yourself with all of your work and just get out and have fun with other grad students who understand what being in grad school is like. The closer you are with those in your community, the stronger your support system will be, and that is invaluable in grad school. As you get closer with others in your cohort or program, try not to compare yourself to those around you. Comparing yourself to others is a surefire way to develop imposter syndrome, and everyone does grad school in a way that works for them and in a way that allows them to get what they need out of it. So it will look different for everyone. So focus on your own journey and support others around you in their journey. And finally, don't forget that you're getting a degree. You'll be in grad school for a relatively short amount of time. So try to enjoy it while you can. And when you're stressed out, know that it's a mean to an end that will not last forever. And if you hit next, my last word of wisdom is to think positive about this process. Okay, so thanks for taking the time to listen to these words of advice, and best of luck to you all in your grad school journey. And I'm looking forward to hearing your questions in the Q&A.
Thank you, everybody.